We'll start here at Madiba, a South African restaurant, where we'll meet Fort Greene resident Ishmael Beah, whose 2007 memoir, A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier, recounted his experiences as a child soldier in Sierra Leone. He now works to help some of the 300,000 child soldiers currently involved in conflicts around the world, who are fighting for their lives. It's a testament to how telling our own stories can empower us to help others.
My name is Ishmael Beah, and I am the author of A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier. Well, how I ended up in New York is because of the war that happened in Sierra Leone. When the war started in 1991, and when I was 12, which was in 1993, it came to my part of the country. And through that time, I began to see things that I'd never seen on this landscape, you know, where people were killed, where people had begun to fear young people as well. You know, so your innocence as a child was replaced with tremendous fear because children were being forced into the violence, either by having them kill their own parents or kill members of their communities. So that changed how people look at children. And between the ages of 12 and 13, my immediate family was killed. So my mother, father, and two brothers were killed. And I was the only survivor of that. And I ended up going to a military base, thinking this would be the only place that I could find safety. But it was there that I was dragged into this war to fight as a child soldier, with very limited training, and I lost a lot of the friends that I joined with who died. And eventually, after a little over 2 years, I was removed by UNICEF and other UN organizations, placed in a rehabilitation center. And then luckily, I was able to actually win a competition to come to the United States at the end of 1996. By 1998, June, I came to live in New York. And I used to live in Manhattan, in the East Village, which is where my mother lives. And then a few years after that, I moved to Brooklyn, to Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And I don't think I'm leaving Brooklyn ever again. No. Well, for me, I think Fort Greene particularly, there's still a sense of community that's here, you know, where if I'm not around and I come, my neighbor says, so where have you been? That's something that I didn't feel like I got in Manhattan. There's also just people are very relaxed, you know. And when I come home, I really feel that I'm coming home. You know, there's a very restful quality to being in this spot, and that's one of the things that I love about being here. And also there's so many people from so many different parts of the world, and also so many artistic, you know. So that's one of the reasons why I like this area. One of the reasons why I really wanted to write, I think, came from frustration. And the frustration came when I started living in the United States in New York, when I would say to people that I was from Sierra Leone, and a good number of people had no idea where that was. And the war had been going on for over 8 years at that time. You know, and also when people spoke about children, child soldiers who have been dragged into war, they called them a lost generation, which is a term described that, you know, once your life had been touched by this war, nothing can be done for you anymore. And here I was living in the United States, going to school. So it really came out of frustration, just a frustration that very little was known about this experience. And there were lots of ways people spoke about it without any human context. So I really wanted to give context to the story so that people know that this is happening to human beings, not just people who are so far removed from, you know, some type of reality, you know. And I also wanted to write it so that I can bring people to that landscape, so they can see, hear, smell, feel, and be a part of this experience so intimately they can understand that all of us are capable of losing our humanity if we have that circumstances in our lives. You know. It was nighttime, and we sat by the fire, stretching our arms towards the flames as we listened to stories and watched the moon and stars retire. The red coal from the firewood lit our faces in the dark, and whips of smoke continuously rose toward the sky. Pa Sise, one of my friend's grandfather, had told us many stories that night, but before he began telling the last story, he repeatedly said, "This is a very important story." He then cleared his throat and began. There was a hunter who went into the bush to kill a monkey. He had looked for only a few minutes when he saw a monkey sitting comfortably in the branch of a low tree. The monkey didn't pay him any attention, not even when his footsteps on the dried leaves rose and fell as he neared. When he was close enough and behind a tree where he could clearly see the monkey, he raised his rifle and aimed. Just when he was about to pull the trigger, the monkey spoke. "If you shoot me, your mother will die, and if you don't, your father will die. The monkey resumed its position, chewing its food, and every so often scratched its head or the side of its belly. What would you do if you were the hunter? This was a story told to young people in my village once a year. The storyteller, usually an elder, would pose this unanswerable question at the end of the story in the presence of the children's parents. Every child who was present at the gathering was asked to give an answer. But no child ever did, since their mother and father were both present. The storyteller never offered an answer either. During each of these gatherings, when it was my time to respond, I always told the storyteller that I would think it over, which of course was not a good enough answer. After such gatherings, my peers and I, all the children between the ages of 6 and 12, would brainstorm several possible answers that would avoid the death of one of our parents. There was no right answer. If you spared the monkey, someone was going to die, and if you didn't, someone would also die. That night, we agreed on an answer, but it was immediately rejected. We told Pasise that if any of us was the hunter, we wouldn't have gone hunting for monkeys. We told him, there are other animals such as deer to hunt. That is not an acceptable answer, he said. We are assuming that you, as the hunter, had already raised your gun and have to make the decision. He broke his collar knot in half and smiled before putting a piece in his mouth. When I was 7, I had an answer to this question that made sense to me. I never discussed it with anyone though, for fear of how my mother would feel. I concluded to myself that if I were the hunter, I would shoot the monkey so that it would no longer have the chance to put other hunters in the same predicament.